We're good. We're in. What's up? I'm back again with my buddy Garrett here. And we got another interesting topic, as you can see. The Exiles of Egypt. I guess we're going to be talking about everybody's favorite thing to talk about on the alt-right and or the right wing and or dissident right and or why not? I mean, I've already been kicked out of 109 chats, so we might as well, keep it going, right?
Make it 110.
I mean, that's why you
Yeah.
start your own podcast. So why not, right?
God, dude, that's kind of like the jokes that are all over the ADL post from yesterday.
To bring it to full fruition. What's with the 1488, right? The 14th letter of the alphabet,
Yep.
twice.
It's 14 words, eighth letter of the alphabet twice.
H is the fourth. Wow. See, that tells you. Yep. Tells you how quick I am on these things. How much I care.
Dude, I knew about that stuff over 10 years ago, so it's just one of those things when people say it now, I'm just like, did you just find out about this? Is this just now becoming your fantasy? Like, I thought this was the rebellious freshman year of high school teen thing where everyone's like, oh, Hitler's a cool dude, and they all research him, and then you're just like, okay, after a year, it's like, whatever. Nah.
It's like you find out the really, really hot girl is attracted to guys who just suck. And you're like, all right, well, if that's your thing, see you later.
Yep, over and done with. Bye.
I'm not gonna deal with your baggage. yeah. I mean, I guess you're kind of cool, but not anymore. See, bye. Yeah. And or the other cliche, the high school quarterback that peaks in high school and then he's just a loser for the rest of his life.
Yep.
Could be and or that too. I'm really trying to avoid the other one. The the more hilarious, I guess, memery incel.
Oh.
But I mean it's kind of a stupid derivative.
That word's one of the few words that actually, like, I'm not going to say angers me, but irritates me. Just because of the connotation in which it's used. The people that use it are typically the hoes sleeping with the top 10% of men as they view them. So it's just, fuck that word.
Yeah.
Like, it has its place, it has its meaning, and there's definitely people that fit that category. But holy shit, is it overused, abused, and misused? Kind of like my ex.
Ooh. Damn. We went there.
Oh, dude, I make ridiculous
We won't
comments.
go there for a long time, though. Don't be a misogynist with that, man. Why are you being such a misogynist with that?
I mean, if fact and logic make me one, then I guess I am one.
Well, I mean, doesn't it always, like, it makes you some kind of ism?
Yeah, you get called some form of derogatory term if you use fact and logic to back up your points. But, it's neither here nor there.
But facts don't care about your feelings, as said by another famous person of a certain tribe who is very much in the media, I think.
Yeah. But you've also got it being pushed by guys like Tom McDonald, whom I'm a pretty big fan of personally.
Yeah.
Because he just calls it as he sees it personally. That's why I like him. The other one of the tiny hat group is a little. I'm starting to see that he's just, it makes me money, I'm going to do it type of person.
Oh, Ben?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, he really likes to play up the high IQ hyperbole, but he still can't he still can't deal with the fact that he's one of the part of the he's one of the ones that I don't know. It's I mean, he's weird. I mean, then that's neither here nor there with his ancestry. He's just he's just a weird dude.
Yeah.
But I mean, he's highly intelligent. So I'll give him that. Like he's definitely a debate artist. Like you'd make Jay Dyer look like a retard. So that's for sure. But I mean he gets to the point to where the I mean if anybody's educated on this, they know like who the exiles of Egypt were. And I mean it's obvious that if you don't know, I mean there's context to it, right? And like I said, sure there's 109 countries that they've been kicked out of, but that still doesn't negate the fact that there's a lot of context to it. And I mean, it's just like the context that's shown in like memes and stuff to be edgy. I mean, just it's
It
not
has some
adding.
truth.
Yeah, it has. See, that's the problem.
It has some, and they use just that tiny bit of truth and manipulate the entire meaning of everything outside of that. And it's like, all right, you're right, but stop being misleading. Stop being a dick and explain the entirety of this.
Yeah, and it's something exactly that like they want to complain about the natural order of things, and the tiny hats go and screw that up. Well, no, like if you're complaining about things and things need to be restored to their natural order, well, in reality, there's only one answer to that, but yet you can't find a solution for. I mean, I don't know. It's really weird to contextualize that on the right wing because they're just like to me they replace God or Christ with like a political theology, you know, or some kind of trapping of like they want to work in an agnostic, a Gnostic, even damn near atheistic framework into what is to be blamed for, the exiles of Egypt for. But yet I'm going to give them credit where credit's due when it comes to the Jews. I mean, they still have some semblance of order. They still believe in God, like they do, like just like Muslims, they still believe in God, like they do in some way, shape, or form. They still believe in a monotheistic God. We both know there's only one way to that God, but once you take away the personification and or the personal touch, the reflection of Christ, then it does become very abstract. Then your worship does become, stratified in a sense to where there is no like order to it, right? So the right wing and the people on the alt right, the Nazis, do that, but it's an abstraction, right? There's nothing there, and they just do it just as much as whom they deem to be their racial enemies, to be edgy, right?
Yep.
And it's just it's like it's basically then a flying spaghetti monster versus a flying spaghetti monster. One's made out of matzo balls, the other one's made out of German egg noodles. I don't know. Like I'm confused now. Like it doesn't make any sense.
It's two sides to the same coin, and they don't realize it most of the time. Now, I will say, and I'm not going to name names because I don't really want to cause drama right now, but I have talked to a few of the guys in AF personally who, when they first joined AF, I called it out and I was like, look, guys, your Catholic variety that Hitler ran was not a real form of Christianity. It wasn't even a real form of Catholicism. It was just straight up a secular manipulation to control people into doing what he wanted. It used the base idea of the Christian religion, which is what a lot of Germans were at the time, to fire them up and get them mad while using atheistic ideologies to push amongst the people. And I got them to look and actually dive deep into it. And within the past couple months, they've come back to me and go, "Yeah, I completely agree." There's I can't think of the term right now, but it's like Hitler's false Christianity or something like that's what they use to basically
Positive
state that.
Christianity.
Is that what it is?
Yeah, it sounds like one of those charismatic Christianity movements.
But basically, they were making comments about how it's like a bunch of pagan beliefs pushed into Christianity run by an atheist to control society and individual thoughts and push them into being mad and angry against a bunch of people, which may or may not deserve that wrath, but it was definitely manipulated and controlled by a false religion. And some of the AAF guys are admitting that. Now, they won't admit that in public, which is driving me batty because it's like there's no difference between what you're doing now versus Hitler supporters that felt the same way. If you truly believe in what you're doing, maybe you should push for a true version of Christianity in an America First ideology. Just saying, it would resemble a lot less of Hitler manipulating society and individuals. But from there, I think we should kind of hit the head on the exile real quick. Just get that out of the way.
Okay.
So, as everyone that's going to watch this or should know by this point that the exile of the Jews, yes, they got exiled from another country, Egypt. And let's back that up. I said Jews. That is completely incorrect. It was Israelites that got exiled from Egypt. And we can't call them Jews. The term of Jews does not come around for what, 15, 2,000 more years? So the Israelis get exiled from Egypt. Part of that is because, well, they're fucking intelligent people. They push their children to become better and better and better at everything they do. They want to be a doctor? Cool. You're going to be the best damn surgeon you can be. You want to be a lawyer? You're going to be the best damn lawyer, whether it's criminal, business, or family court, doesn't matter. You're going to be the best lawyer you can be in your field. Oh, you're going to be a politician? Well, you're going to be the best damn politician in your field. Like, that's what they push them to be. So, or you want to be a banker, mathematician, anything like that. They get pushed to be the best they can be, which is a biblical stance, which I can completely get behind.
Mm-hmm.
The issue, though, that arises with this, for bad or for good or bad, is that they then take over societies because they are that damn good. When you're the best banker and you can make sure that not only are you and your family protected from losses, but you can also make sure that the people you're investing in actually do their job and create and build. There's
Wealth.
nothing wrong. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
But the problem is people see that and they're like, oh, they're trying to take over our culture. And it's like, not necessarily or not in the way that you think. They are
Yeah.
just doing the best they can do. So part of that's a huge portion of the reason why Israel was exiled from Egypt. Now, or well, enslaved to be more accurate. God exiled them from Israel or from Egypt, and that was for their own protection because of what was coming. They would have eventually been slaughtered off, and that goes for the next couple thousand years. Is Israel just does Israel? Well, A huge thing that most people don't know is Israel stayed themselves for a long time. After what is it, Solomon? Yes, Solomon. After King Solomon, though, there was a huge split, and this is where the Jews come from. Is you had the 10 tribes of Israel that stayed up north, and the 2 tribes of Judea that went down to the region of Judea. That is where you have your split between Israelites and Jews. Now, there's some other information that's kind of mixed and matched in that I don't have enough proof on, so I'm not going to speak on that in terms of other tribes potentially going down to Judea and surviving. But for long story short, in that aspect, we had a ton of problems in Israel. Israel didn't have a single good king after Solomon. They had idol worshiping. They had unholy sacrifices. They had rampant crime. They had rape, molestation, destruction, self-destruction. Like they didn't have any morality after King Solomon for whatever reason. I don't remember exactly what it is right now. So from there, God scattered them. He came in with Assyria, took over Israel, and then scattered them. And if anyone knows anything about Assyria, well, their control in one way or another, whether it just be their trade control or their actual land control, they had control all the way to Western Europe. Not necessarily England or the islands, but over towards France, Spain, Germany, areas like that. So they scattered Israel all throughout with their trades. Partially because, well, the Jews are smart at fucking math and banking, so they took advantage of that. They scattered them all around. They made them intermarry with other tribes that aren't Jewish. They intermarried with Assyrians themselves, so they're just scattered. Well, Judea, for better or worse, had better kings on average. Not completely, because they were taken over by Babylon. Or was it Babylon? Damn, now I'm forgetting stuff. Yeah, no, it's not good.
Would have to need a fact check. Fact check. No.
Yeah, actually, was it
Judea? So Judea. Well,
yeah,
Babylon
Babylon.
Babylon ran
Babylonia.
from. Yeah, and this was This was post Sumerian.
Pre-Sumerian.
Pre-Sumerian.
Pre-Sumerian. Yeah, because
The
Sumerians
Sumerians
were
came after the Babylonians.
the Sumerian.
Or wait, did they?
No, it's post-Sumerian.
It's post Sumerian.
I was thinking of the half Jews that lived up in Galilee and northern areas of Israel at the time. I always get those names confused for whatever reason. But you've got Babylonia that came in and conquered Judea, sorry. And that was after they had, I think, 2 or 3 out of 7 good kings, but they got really bad into idol worshiping and degeneracy and sacrifices that aren't holy and stuff like that. So God turned them over to Babylonia. And that's where you get David and the Lion's Den, so on and so forth. You still had very intelligent Jews, and these are Jews because they come from Judea at this point. You had super godly men still existing in the society. And so they were able to help Babylonia. And then they were sent back to Israel after a couple hundred years of exile, 400 years, I believe, of exile.
Yeah.
And this is where things start to go sideways. Like, really sideways. At this point, you start having the beginning of the Pharisees and the Sadducees that are manipulating the beliefs and the understanding of the Torah and everything else. This is also about when the Talmud really begins to become a major doctrine in which that they believe in and is used to preach and teach. So you've just got individuals fighting for power and control, which kind of resembles current day what we see with the Jews.
Yep. And or I mean, if you want to take it to the, I guess, the overarching government level, I mean, look at pagan Rome and look at America. I mean, there's a lot reflecting. I mean, it's not there's not a whole lot of there's not a whole lot of dissimilarity.
Yep.
There's more similarities.
Well, from there, obviously Romans come in, take over. Jews being Jews want to have their power and their control and their fingers and everything. They realized they weren't going to quite be able to do that with Rome, with how far away the Roman leadership was, the fact that their brothers that are in Europe at this point are the ones that are pretty much helping, silently helping Rome contain the Jews and prevent them from doing their shit. The Jews get mad and they start causing problems. They start fucking with societies. They start encouraging people to indulge in degeneracy and in their immoral ways, knowing that it's going to destroy the society and they'll be able to take control of some way or another, whether it's financial, whether it's via the government or society, just by running how society thinks. So they definitely fucked up Rome. Rome, don't get me wrong, Rome was going downhill pretty fast anyways because they were already degenerate. The Jews just were like, hey, we see what you're doing. Let's turn that knob from 2 to 10. Fuck you.
Accelerationists.
Yep. They take advantage of everything around them and manipulate it in a way that is unholy. And then, so you had at the time though, you had infighting with the Jews. You had the infighting between the Pharisees and the Sadducees. You had them causing problems with societies. So eventually Rome almost wiped them off the face of the earth.
Mm-hmm.
And sorry about that. The
Okay.
only people to still keep them in check were the Israelis that were scattered throughout Europe. So you have the two small factions of Jews fighting each other, causing issues. Then you've got their true second faction of Israel fighting with them. When that started becoming more prevalent, they started getting exiled from more and more countries because the Jews would go in, start taking control of the banking systems, the economy, and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But they were going into primarily European worlds, and the Israelites that had been intermarried and scattered throughout that are like, oh, we know who you are. You're our other half. Fuck you. Stop this. And they'd get exiled and they'd cause
Mm-hmm.
problems. They'd interfight. Every fucking time they are interfighting with each other, causing problems for these different societies. And that's why they keep getting exiled from these places. On top of that, they falsely claim, I mean, technically it's not a false claim, they are Jews, but they falsely claim Jews as the identity of Israel.
Yeah.
And
God's
so
chosen people.
yep. So you've got this whole entire misleading society that's in control of Israel, that's in control of the ADL, and all sorts of other high-ranking officials that
Yeah.
believe themselves as Jews. They've manipulated most of the Israelites. They've manipulated most of them into calling themselves Jews.
Mm-hmm.
And yet they still interfight. Which comes down to Hitler at this point.
You could call it, and I mean, there's other ways to say this, but I guess the more appropriate way to term like the variety, what is it? Ashkenazi, Sephardic, and what's the other one? Hasidic.
Yep.
Are that's the diaspora, is what I know this for a fact because that is what the Greeks or the Hellenics called like factions and or racial categories of what Jews were. Oh, and the Khazars. There's also the Khazars too.
The Russians.
Yeah, they're Slavic Jews. or
Same
Turkish Jew.
difference.
But the thing is that the Jews liked Hellenic culture so much that the Greeks needed a term for them. And diaspora just means like it's another word, just I guess for just like group of a specific group of people. And the interesting part about that is that it's like they on how like it's kind of strange because there is I mean there is a very Greek mindset or Hellenic mindset to Western culture, right? There is. Like it's kind of undeniable in its spirit. But the weird part is that the Jews never really adapted to any other culture, I guess, besides because there was similarities there. The only thing is that obviously Greek culture and Hellenic culture dropped philosophy as like its and the pagan mythology as its thing, and obviously progressed and adopted Christianity. And that the problem is that obviously the Jews who call themselves whatever they call themselves, whatever, false in a lot of ways, are still very very spiritually stuck. The
Yep.
Hellenes have moved on. And I mean it's weird because it's like there is a definite Hellenic spirit and mindset. I will say that. And it is strange like living in the West and seeing that. But it's not completely foreign like the way the alt-right portrays the Jews being so foreign, right, to it all. Right? And the thing is that it's like sure there's a stranger in a strange land mentality because we can definitely take one of the most famous lines in that in that version of the scripture. But I mean in a lot of ways we're all pilgrims of this
Yep.
world, but the spiritual rejection that is so strangely intertwined with the way they operate, and the way they love things of the world, that it obviously it can be categorized and it can be projected in a very, how do I put this, misleading, to the point where extremism is applied. And obviously the weird part is that's across the board, right? That just doesn't stick with that just doesn't stick with them, right?
Yeah.
And the thing is that the West, and it's weird because the West has lost a lot of its, I guess you could say, Eastern spirit with its rationalizations of, and I don't mean Far East. I mean like to the point where those rationalizations are, have progressed it into, a forgotten, a forgotten time. So where we all feel like strangers in a strange land. We don't feel like we're at home anymore because of how strange things have gotten. I mean, even like people of like, and I know like the alt right loves the or the dissident right like loves to harp on stuff like this with the racial differences and stuff. But it's like that's not I mean that's there's parts to it that are certainly true, and there's parts to it that are certainly just overblown and extreme. And the problem is that when a group of people just don't have a spiritual home themselves, they're going to be constant exiles. It's not just like it's not just like it's a way of just saying, oh well, God's damning them and punishing them constantly. Well, yeah, I mean, sure, there is that false dichotomy that they are God's chosen, quote unquote, but yet they reject the very God, the very incarnation of the Word and in the eternal logos of Christ. They outright reject the Lord, but that is a continuum of exile. But that's beyond anything we can even comprehend. And to outright just say, they deserve that, that also gets complicated too, because you can't say that about any group of people. Then it's like,
If you want to say that about any group of people, then you have to say it about all groups of people.
yes, it's true. It's true. Like,
Like,
because
those without sin cast the first stone. That was one of the big things Jesus wanted to make sure that we understood. Look,
yeah,
yes, teach, correct, rebuke your brothers, keep them in check, keep them going down the right path. But don't you dare try to go, well, you're the problem. All of you were the problem. I'm not a problem. It's like, no, pull that giant log out of your eye before you try and pull that thorn out of your brother's eye.
yeah, yeah. It's a weird continuum that they just hyper focus on, and I think it mitigates a lot of other problems too. I think it really doesn't. It really just doesn't solve the issue at hand. Like, it's like the whole recent affirmative action blow up. Like they were like, oh well, yeah, racism in the United States is the issue, that these minority candidates aren't eligible to get into schools, right, or get into colleges for a good education. And I'm like, no, the problem is the education system. Like, are we missing the forest for the trees here? And it's like, maybe if started working on that, and actually, grinding that down to a pulp, or to the point to where these poor children are, black, white, brown, whatever, are coming from, socioeconomic statuses that aren't so great. Then what? See, that's the issue. Like, you have your corrupt politicians skimming off the top and taking money where that tax money could go to invest into those schools, to invest into those children. And yet, where's the money? Where's the money, Lebowski? Nothing, nowhere to be found. Just, to me, it's a sleight of hand stuff, and those people don't have to be Jewish to do that.
Nope.
So, and that's, to me, that's just it. Where it's like, it doesn't, that's a character issue. That's obviously an issue that is, they think they're blaming a symptom of society, when in fact they are the very cancer that grows and continues that corruption to the very community that they're supposedly serving. And you can't do that. That's casting stones at problems that, by this point in time in America, just seem really old and tired and disingenuous. And it's not going anywhere. Like, it's not you're not going to do anything about it. And I mean, that's just like, you have to be a realist with some of these things. And I feel like just blaming them constantly too is another form of escapism. Like, you can't deal with your own issues, so you need to point the finger at groups of people to escape your own reality. I mean, tortured existence, I guess. I mean, I know that's kind of Nietzschean, and I know that's kind of probably dark, and gets all strangely gothic, but you know what I mean.
It's true. It's completely true, man. Like, don't get me wrong. There's definitely a lot of problems with the Jewish community, but the people pointing them out all the time are always the people that can't control their own lives. They can't build their own destiny. They can't build their own wealth. They can't follow the word of God, and they blame the Jews. And it's like, dude, there's plenty of stuff to blame the Jews on, but please, for the love of God, fix yourself first. Please get yourself in order before you start calling them out, because otherwise, you just look like the pot calling the kettle black. And it's just like, why would anyone want to listen to you?
Yeah.
Like, I hate using these cliches, but man, the older I get, the more I'm understanding why these cliches exist.
I don't like cliches either.
I know, but sometimes they exist for a reason, man. Specifically, pot calling the kettle black. There's a huge reason that one exists, and it's, to me, it drives me nuts because it's like one of the arguments I had with an America Firster is like, I called him out. I was like, dude, you're literally doing the same thing you accused the Jews of doing, which, don't get me wrong, they're doing. They are doing. Oh, well, I'm allowed to do it because I'm on the side of God. And I'm like, that's pretty fucked up of you to say. Like, you're trying to claim morality and saying that God allows you to do this. God hasn't spoken to very many people since the time of the split of the tribes. I'm not going to say that you can't, God hasn't spoken to you, but the likelihood that God's going to tell you to do the same exact thing you're accusing someone else of doing is evil and giving you justification for, I'm sorry, that's kind of hard to believe. I can't
Yeah.
believe that.
Even our more like, because I mean, I consider, obviously, I'm going to be biased with saying this, but I consider Orthodox saints to be truly saints. Like, they're truly saints. And even the saints didn't think they were holy enough and didn't think they were good enough for God's grace. So, I mean, that should kind of humble you, right? That should kind of tell you and put you in your place and be like, yeah, I mean, if they didn't even think they were holy people, you know, whoa, me calling somebody else out for their own transgressions puts things in perspective when they're capital S saints versus
The average saints, yep.
Yeah, just normal laymen.
Yeah, no, that's usually, for me at least, that's an indicator of someone to listen to. Is someone that's like, I messed up. This is where I sin. This is my problems. Yes, these people over here have a problem with this, this, and this, and the same. I do the same thing as them, and this, and this. That's when I'm more open to going, okay, let's see what you got to say. Because the likelihood of you just trying to hide your problems and confront someone else about theirs, you just admitted your problems. You're not doing that.
Yeah.
There's multiple aspects of it to me. Like, there's they're humble, they're honest, and usually they're doing it out of love. That I can get behind. Doing it for nefarious reasons, doing it to cover up your own sins, going, look at him, not me, look at him. I'm sorry, but I can't. That's one of the few things in this world that will drive me not insane, but mad enough to start yelling at people like, what is your deal? Why aren't you fixing your stuff? Yes, they got problems. Fix your stuff and help them at the same time if you can. Otherwise, fix yours first, then worry on helping your brother. And Jesus made all this clear time and
Mm-hmm.
time again. He made so many parables about this. And I don't want to rehash the same couple parables I've already said, like the thorn versus the log. But he made it clear that you focus on yourself and you focus on your family, you can build the society that the alt-right claims they want while they're just sitting there nagging and complaining and pointing fingers. It's like, why don't you build yourself, your family, and your friends? Why don't you build your community to be what you want? Because if you can build your community, not only then do you show the rest of the world how to live, you show the world that, hey, you can be a leader. You are someone that's capable of taking us in the direction we want to go as a society. But right now, all you want to do is bitch, complain, and blame the Jews.
Yeah. And to me, it's just like that's a cop out. Like that's always been a cop out that's used, and it's just put on this hamster wheel. And it's like you even feel like, I mean, seeing it reverberate even in Detroit when I know like the South obviously has their issues with the mega churches and the pastors and stuff, but even in like the poor, the poor inner city communities, the ghettos, you see the pastor that's at the parish, that whatever Baptist parish flavor there is, um, be ghetto rich, right? He's the guy dressing in the nice suits, driving around in the caddy, you know, well dressed to the nines, as they like to say. Um, and he's the one that is trying to preach to you about being humble, and it's just like, bro, like, you sure about that? Like, it's just, to me, it's like, it's obviously it's hypocritical. Um, and then like it's definitely things I don't see in Protestantism and Catholicism. I don't see the consistency that's there, like in Orthodoxy. But that's not to say there aren't pious and humble. Obviously, there's pious and humble people throughout all three denominations, and then there certainly is not, and they're the ones that are not are obviously a little bit more pronounced and out
Yep.
there because you like obviously you know that rat when you see one. To use another cliche. Uh, but the thing is that it's like it's weird because it's like to me, like there are religiously pious people, and rather they be Jew or Gentile. Jesus never strayed away from that concept. He never strayed away from that comment because he did like it's very very adamant that he made that clear. Like he did not stray away from that. Um and to me, obviously I think Western society lacks a continuity with that. And that's why it's so easy to get caught up in these alt-right and dissident right narratives to have a bait and switch or have a target on something that seems like it's a monolithic force because I mean obviously there's BlackRock. Let's just say it for what it is.
BlackRock and Vanguard.
Yep. Let's just say it for what it is, and they're led by mainly people who were once related to some kind of exiles of Egypt. Yeah, little,
Tiny
little, little,
hats.
little, like the tiny hat the Pope wears, right? Yeah, it's that one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but it's just to me there's obviously a constant theme of on both sides of spiritual just there's a spiritual chasm that's there and there's not anything to fill it you know
Yeah. All right. If we can take a quick break, I got to run to the restroom. Just came out of nowhere on me.
This is the time we insert some intermission music.
Do, 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 do.
Okay, that's fair.
All right. I'll be right back.
Definitely. Taking a quick fiver. But yeah, I guess just to build some momentum, I mean, there is the facts, and it's not like anti-Semitic, it's not racist, it's not like alt-right, it's not like some, right-wing conspiracy theory nonsense to point out there's certain patterns and pattern recognition that these things occur. Because I mean, they're like we were kind of like touching on the subject earlier of natural order, natural law. I mean, there is a point to where I think in Catholicism that becomes a problem. I think in Protestantism that becomes a problem. Um, and I think in a very weird sense, it obviously there is derivatives of it in Orthodoxy, but that's getting way down a theological rabbit hole that obviously we're not going down. But when you see it like interpreted in other like religious traditions and other facets of society, um the weird part is that it's like to me, if them calling themselves God's chosen people and yet they've placed themselves into these positions of such high regard, of such and they consider themselves to be religious people, which I understand that you've mentioned that the schism before, that's between basically the unbelieving Jews and the Orthodox Jews. Like you've and that has reverberated throughout the community, right? And they know that. Like they know that. And it's just like being an Orthodox Christian, I can definitely relate to that. But that doesn't mean, I want to like deny like somebody like you, because it's like obviously you're a Christian. Obviously, you know, like there's more similarities there than there are differences. And yet the thing is that there's that spiritual tie that's there, right? Yet with people who, I guess, who are spiritually orphaned and spiritually lost or spiritually exiled, that's what it is. Like they're in that constant mode of trying to find themselves, trying to find what's true, trying to find some semblance of God. And there is that natural order that's there that's never attained because they don't have, I mean, they don't have that they don't have that very real concept of God, God personified, right? And to reject Christ, I mean, even somebody, and I'm pulling from a Catholic professor now, Dr. E. Michael Jones, suggested that the societies that reject Christ, the societies that continue to, and this is not even anything to do with the Jews anymore. Like you take Hindus, you take, I mean, you take the Hindu culture, you take uh, pagans, you take Islam, you take the communities that are highly, I guess you could say, theocratic, I guess you could say religiously preoccupied, and yet they're always in some kind of turmoil. They're always, compared to Western Europe and how it established the world, they're in some kind of turmoil. Like there's not a society. Oh well, I mean, and look at what communism did to Europe and Russia, right? I mean, it almost like talk about talk about a Christian Holocaust. Or I mean, the communists almost wiped out Orthodox Russia. And I know the alt right likes to use that to justify, oh, Nazis good. Well, no, the Nazis almost wiped out. I mean, and they were menacing in Orthodox countries as well, especially in
Yep.
Ukraine and Greece. Like they left people for dead, starving. I mean, they did the whole shot. So they were just as bad as egregious as the communists. And the thing is they tend to leave that out. They tend to be like, oh well, we're going to deny the Holocaust. Okay, I see that you might have facts to back that up, which a lot of it is just a bunch of emotional hogwash. Just like the fact that there was the Einsatzgruppen that literally deemed people as partisans and shot them, killed them.
Yep.
Like they were mainly European Christians. Like they were mainly European and or people who considered them, racial brothers, right? But they weren't purely Germanic, which they deemed Aryan, which is a whole nother gamut of
Yeah,
non.
and
That's to me, that's more like because Jews marry Jews and Jews don't like to marry outside of their own racial, group. What is that whole Aryan concept, right? That's just another reiteration of what it is. And I'm not promoting like, any of, what the things the alt-right, wants, because I'm not here to talk about, any of that stuff, because that's not personally, that's nobody's business in a lot of ways. But it's to the point to where it gets so extreme that blood purity is to the point to where it's not. I don't really get it. Like then you're going to try to justify things 7 ways towards Sunday, and it's not going to end up making any sense anymore.
to me, the funniest part about that entire thing is they talk about racial purity and all that, and then go on and admit that the Jews were the first major culture to bring in the ideology of race to split cultures in part. And
Mm-hmm.
it's like, do you not understand that the people that you blame for all the problems are the same people that you're believing in their system of beliefs that was designed to split you up and separate you from your brothers that were near you? Like it in all actuality, the idea of race is a fairly new thing. It's only in the past couple 100 years, 500 years at most. Prior to that, it was culture. It was all about your culture. Didn't matter what your skin color was, it mattered what your culture and beliefs were. How you interacted with your neighbor, how you treated your neighbor. Your religious beliefs had a huge role into that at the same time. That's why a lot of cultures prior to that, yeah, they go to war. They're going to have their problems. But if they were all some form of Christian nation prior to that, wasn't a major ordeal. Or if they were all Jewish, wasn't a major ordeal.
Mm-hmm.
If they were all Muslim, wasn't a major ordeal. But nowadays, it's like, oh, the Muslims go and slaughter the black Muslims in Africa. White Christians slaughter other white Christians because, well, it's Catholic versus Protestant versus Orthodox. And it's like, you know, you're playing into that game that you said you see through and don't want any part of. And it drives me nuts that they talk about this blood purity and this race purity. And then they want to go to war with their own brothers that they claim to be of the same race. When in all actuality, you can go back to what we were talking about a little bit ago, where you build your lifestyle, you build your wealth, you build your community, you build your society, you prop them up, you build it as you see a just Christian society should be. But they won't do that. They just want to keep playing this stupid freaking race game, and it drives me nuts.
Yeah, because they want to add chaos to what's already chaotic because they don't have justified and or really concrete beliefs in all actuality. It's coming from a place of malice. It's coming from a place of anger. um I mean, an alcoholic can only hit the bottle so many times until he can stop blaming the problem that caused him to drink in the first place, right? And
Yep.
now once you recognize, well, I'm drinking myself half to death because I have all these problems in my life. Well, maybe if you recognize the chaos with you and the fact that you might be part of the problem, it's there, right? And to me, it is ironic that once I learned one of my first red pills was, yeah, sure, there's a ton of Jewish backing as far as financing goes, financing the brother wars, being responsible for them and largely profiting off of them by playing both sides. But then you go and look up a company like, what was it? One of the more heavily Jewish companies at the time in Nazi Germany. Was it IG Farben? Is IG Farben were
Mm,
they or no? Maybe I'm.
I don't know. IG Farben. Let me look it up.
Is that the Jewish or IG Farben? Is there Bayer? I forgot. One of them was owned by a Jew CEO. Maybe, maybe not.
I honestly don't know that much about different companies during World War II era. Um,
Okay.
most of my knowledge is actually of the battles that were fought. That for whatever reason that was one of the things that intrigued me growing up.
Yeah.
Also, some of the political climate that led to it. Now, the
Yeah.
physical companies that were running things and controlling things, I didn't know too much about. Like
Yeah.
oh
Well,
yeah,
is it IG Farben?
because you said Bear, right?
Yeah, Bayer. Yeah, they
That's who
still
they
make.
used to be.
Oh, that's who they used to be. Okay.
Like that was one of their names. Um,
I don't know if that was ran by
it was a
non-Gentiles.
merger of BASF, Bear, Horst, Agfa, Chemisch,
Horse?
Fabrik, Hochrest.
Horse?
That's not Hoechst.
It's a
Um,
horse of a different color.
Chemische Fabrik Grecian Electron and Fabrik Vorm Wheeler Termeer. Yeah, I am terrible at German, so if
It's
anyone
okay.
wants to yell at me for that, that's fine.
But the irony, regardless of what it is, the whole concept of the fact that, I mean, ethno nationalism versus multiculturalism. Sure, we can see there's definite issues with multiculturalism versus ethno nationalism. Sure, sure we can. A homogenous society is definitely much more sustainable. Like it's there, and this is the easier way to talk about like interracial relations, interracial marriage, and stuff. Like this is the much more contextualized argument because you can't take society on anecdotes. You have to take society as whole structures, right? Obviously,
yeah,
the family is the important part, and an interracial family that believes in God and wants to be Christian and obviously wants to be important and they want to have a wholesome family. I'll take that family over a pagan white family.
I completely agree on that.
Or who are just burdens on society because most of the time they're probably on some kind of government and government funding and things like that. But that's not, obviously the numbers speak for itself, and the different minority groups are more of a burden on American society than those of European descent. But regardless of all that, regardless of the hate statistics that I just threw out there, right? The
Hate.
problem is then you have the irony of the Jews controlling that narrative, right? You do. Like they want to control that narrative because they don't want to have their own sins cast out, right? They don't want the stones to be thrown at them because they can just label somebody like me being an anti-Semite for saying something like that. Well, the fact is that no, because once you start to play in that label game, that's where that hamster wheel will pick up, and that's where so many people on the alt right get caught up, and they think they have nothing else to believe in. Like the fact that that weird red pill and that there's that sure I want to see these memes and I want to be angry and I want to believe what I want to believe, but yet when you can't step outside of that and you're so tunnel vision into working your way down the line and trying to oh well I red pill after red pill, that's not really what it's all about. Like you can't just be constantly harping on the fact that you think you're right. Like that's also like because that's not going to go anywhere because you're going to wind up being frustrated about it too. You're going to be wind up you'll be very spiritually unwell
Yep.
too because that's the other part. That's the other strange part about this to me is that they want to decry racism. They want to decry these injustices. They want to say, oh, well, white people are being replaced. They want to talk about, how they have to do something, right? Okay, and what's the other one? The culture war, which has everything to do with pretty much what I just said, plus the alphabet soup groups, right? So they want to sit around and whine about all those things. The problem is that they're playing right into the game, right? They're not sustaining anything outside of that. They're not sustaining anything that's truly going to be a counter to it, right? I mean, in a way, with blaming the Jews and saying they control everything and saying there's this, there's that. Not only are you inviting the devil in, but you're letting him habitate there, right? You're letting him be there in your heart because of the hatred you have towards somebody else. That really, in all essence, has nothing to do with it. I mean, the weird part is that you can say that this drag queen story hour is because of them, because some rabbi called you goyim or called you a cattle, right? Or you could say, well, I know I'll be called all these names. I'll know I'll be ostracized. But is that really important to me versus this weirdo coming and talking to children? Like, what's more important, the safety of the children or some kind of weird social ostracization? Yeah, I mean, it's obviously a weird thing that we have come across this day and age, but I think it almost has nothing to do with the memes that I see. Like that has nothing to do with what are you know with what I mean. I understand that America is a highly individualistic nation. That's and it is in a revolutionary spirit against God. That I do have in some way, shape, or form. Obviously it's tough for me to deal with, but in a lot of ways, America is a very God fearing nation, and there's still a lot of people here that are holistically Christian, a Christian in some way, shape, or form. And to me, it's like the spirit of the people obviously speak for the nation, right? And to me, it's like why is a majority group of people so afraid who are primarily Christian, so afraid of being religiously and or racially ostracized. Like you're playing right into that game too, on top of it. Like you're playing right into the clutches of what they want. And it's a weird dichotomy for me.
They're afraid of losing the game to the point that they'll play the game to win instead of just going, you know what? Why am I playing this game? Why am I not just stepping out of this game that I don't want to be a part of, that I have no obligation to play? But they just let themselves be dragged into the game to play it. And it's like, dude, chill. Step out of the game. Like, another cliche, step out of the matrix. Not wrong at all in this aspect. Get out of the matrix. Get your head out of this game. Put your head above here. We are born into this world. We are not of this world. Stop playing with this world. Start focusing yet again back on yourself, on your family, your community. Build that. Then, whatever these people are doing, whether they be pagan, they be some false Christianity, they be Muslim, they be Jewish, it no longer matters when your community is capable of surviving independently of these people. Then, on top of that, you show the rest of these people around you, the larger community. So, let's say, like in my instance, my city. We show my city how to live. My city starts living properly. Well, all the cities around me start living properly. My county starts living properly. My state starts living properly. All of a sudden, we've got the whole country living in a more moral society based on, hey, I'm not going to sit here and point fingers. I'm not going to sit here and chastise you. I'm not going to sit here and call you names or whatever. I'm not going to assault you. I'm not going to attack you. I'm not going to go to war with you. I am going to show you what needs to be done, and you'll be able to tell based on my actions what we should be doing. None of this bullcrap that basically they keep playing the game into. Like you said, that's what the powers that be want us to do, is to play this stupid game. Because then we get caught up in a bunch of fake rules that don't actually matter. If the vast majority of us just went, you know what? We're tired of this. We're tired of playing by these fake rules, this fake game. We're going to live in the real world. We're going to live by our own law. We're not our own law. I mean the law of Jesus, the law of God that is put down in the Bible. We start living by that. None of their shit matters. The game doesn't matter. You win the game by not playing it, but by completely changing it. You change the game to, let's live by the Bible. Let's play the game of the Bible. And that sounds kind of bad. At least when I say it, in my mind, it sounds kind of bad to say that we're going to play the game of the Bible. But you know what? If that's what it takes to get people's mind off of playing this stupid game that they're sitting there saying they hate, and getting them into the right mindset of following God again, all this outside chatter no longer matters that much. And you know what? If they build a big enough army to create a problem, at that point we are unified. We understand who we are, what we believe, and we're capable of fighting that war a lot better. And I don't mean necessarily a physical war in that aspect. It could be a spiritual war. But until we as individuals get our minds right and our communities right, we don't stand a chance trying to play this game.
Chaos.
Like, there is maybe 10 Christians in this world that could dabble in this chaos and win. I'm not one of them. Don't get me wrong, I love dabbling in chaos. I love chaos to a degree. Just because I personally believe that there is a certain weird beauty in chaos. But at the same time, I know I can't, I have to stay away from it because it will be the end of me, and it will be the end of a lot of other Christians. So we have to just not play the game, as you say. Just don't give them the power to be able to egg us into this game.
Well,
Because they
it
set
can
the rules.
consume you. Yeah.
Yep.
Because it can completely consume your every thought, word, and deed that you don't know that you are literally imbuing yourself with a sin of either pride or some kind of just envy, because envy can turn into pride real quick. Pride can turn into envy real quick.
Yep.
Jealousy and just a blind hatred for no reason. And see, that's just it, where it's like being truly exiles too. And a lot of things, I mean, there is obviously a lot of the dispensationalism that is very, very Zionist and very Jewish in nature. And I hate to just pin that on the Protestants, but in particular, the evangelists and the televangelists run away with it the most, and their crackpot theories about the rapture, whatever it is. God knows what by this point. Um, it to me, it's very, very spiritually evil. It's just as spiritually evil as what the Pharisees and the Sadducees tried to subvert and corrupt and change the laws and you know, change the very essence of what God ordained for us as far as the law goes, God's law. And naturally, obviously all laws have a derivative of God's law until we see a complete inversion like they're doing in frickin' California. But the issue with this is that, yeah, I mean, people naturally are going to move away from those chaotic states, from that chaos, right? And the people who are bringing that into like more conservative states obviously are going to have a hard time until they get in positions of power. Obviously, 9 times out of 10 they're going to probably be like, oh well, there's a Star of David behind this, right? When in fact, like, that's such a strange way to get to that point when you already know the financial sector, who it's controlled by, the degeneracy that they bring on, who it's controlled by. But to say there's not a downstream implication to that there's not just a sense of, obviously there's self-control there, but more importantly, just not individuals are involved in this. These are like whole corporations, and not everybody in the corporation is Jewish. Okay, let's be realistic about that. There's like masterminds implementing these plans. Okay, so why can't you be the person to face that chaos and be like, okay, well, I see this bad thing over here. What can I do to change that? And see, the thing is like, there's a punch and there's a counter punch, and the problem is that be willing to punch back, but not punch back in the way that it's, like you said, attacking. On constant, there's defense and there's offense, right? But to play that like defensive offense, you're not exactly completely attacking the problem just to keep attacking the problem. You're not just in constant attack mode because you hate people or because you have a real, like, just issue with everything. Like, and you can't see, to me also, that shows a lack of maturity. Um and to buy into those isms, to buy into those things that are you know, supposedly, the opposite of what your enemy claims to be, is stupid, because that's just to the point. It's ridiculous because you get so caught up in that constant, and it's a cycle. It's always a constant cycle with this, and and the psychoanalysis there is that, like I went back to the alcoholic or the person that's addicted to something. They're never going to break that cycle until they realize, I need to do something about this. I need to be the one that's going to get myself into a place to where I can correct what I'm doing. And yeah, I mean, that dopamine hit, that dopamine hit that people get from social media, who think they're, oh, we're gonna say all these edgy things, but there's no substance to it. There's absolutely zero momentum. There's absolutely zero substance. And the problem that I saw with Michael Sisko in his, I guess you could say, adaptation and or how he was an America Firster, but the Orthodox version, I guess, of Big Nick. Um, it's funny to me because it's like, okay, if you're gonna attach yourself to a group of people like that, and yet you're Christian, and I do believe he is genuinely Christian, more so than what I can say for the others. But once again, there's a problem, there's a complication there because it's once again like feeling like an exile myself. I feel like a stranger in a strange land being in America, being Orthodox. Like it's a weird, it's kind of weird, but it's also very spiritually reaffirming. I mean, it's not to the point to where, I mean, I'm not out here casting stones towards people because obviously got our own issues to deal with.
Yep.
But the weird part is that we even feel like as much as you can say they got kicked out of 109 countries, when you feel like an exile and a spiritual orphan in your own land, or you're the supposed land that you live in, obviously that's problematic when you can't even understand your own identity, or what calls you home, what truly calls you to God, to be to build upon that, as you said, because when there's no cause and effect and solution to these problems, and you keep throwing out the solution, and it's just cause effect, well, then you're not, then if you don't ever seek a solution, it won't ever happen. I mean, it just won't. And biblically speaking, they can claim they're God's chosen people all they want. Christ explicitly said, and this is why St. John the Baptist is the forerunner of all the saints, the very man who baptized Christ, right there, baptism. Like, if you're not to dwell, in the house of the Lord, you have to obviously be baptized first, right? And it's a
Yeah.
very symbolic thing. There's a ton of backing that goes into it, both theologically, spiritually, and obviously more importantly, salvifically. But to the point to where they even deny the Holy Spirit as something working through water, right? They just see it as mere religious symbolism. Well, you're literally baptized into a new race when you become a Christian. Like, you're literally baptized into it. Christ said it himself. Like, he didn't play on that parable. Like, he said it himself. And to me, there's a definite understanding there, right? He's doing the will of his Father, and like Saint John the Baptist is the first true saint for a reason. Like there is, like, that didn't happen on accident, is what I'm trying to say. Like, there's not a
Yeah.
coincidence, right? And what's weird to me is that the people that are so spiritually lost don't have that momentum throughout the ages. They can't find themselves correlated on like a timeline into prosperity, much like European civilization has, right? Because obviously you had the heavy influence of Catholicism with the West, and then you have the heavy influence of Orthodoxy in the East, and both were primarily Roman, right? West and East, but then you had the obviously rise of Protestantism because of the rejection of what Catholicism turned into. Well, thanks to the Jesuits. Boom, and there's the other thing. Like a lot of people, like I know the Jesuits were very heavily influenced by Jewish law and Jewish philosophy and Judaism itself within the Catholic Church. I understand that. But that just didn't happen out of nowhere. That just didn't happen out of accident. And as that's not like as an Orthodox Christian, that's not me like pushing Catholicism to the side and blaming the Reformation, on the papal Protestants, and then just blaming Protestants, for not recognizing the true church, and blaming just Catholicism for all that. No, there's at its core, there's a very very spiritually sick problem, right? And it's a deep spiritual sickness that's there. And to me, it's just kind of in another way a continuation of whom the Jews rejected in the first place, right? And it's just it's there. I mean, it reverberates, and it reverberated into to create two denominations of Christianity that are, to me, from the Orthodox perspective, away from the source, away from the tradition, away from you know the very much, like you said, building on that community, having those ties to that very much vibrant community that's there, right? So I mean that you do see reverberated throughout history, really.
Yeah.
That was a long rant, I know.
No, you're good. It's definitely see a lot of issues with current day society. The more we talk, the more I'm just like, I don't want to say depressed, but to a degree, it is depressing just seeing like God openly spoke about a lot of this stuff, Jesus specifically, and then we're sitting here fighting over his words when we know exactly what was said, and we lead to basically a downfall of our own brothers on all this. It's disheartening, I think is a good word for it.
Very much so. Very much so. And the downfall of our own brothers, Jew and Gentile alike.
Yep. That's another thing that America First drives me nuts about. They're like, oh, just kill them. And I'm like, do you really want to be the one to draw that sword?
Yeah.
Like, I have no problem. If I have to go to war, I will kill who needs to be killed, and I will not kill a soul more. But I'm not just going to go out causing a war because I disagree with someone. I'll kill in self-defense, and I'll kill when I have to in war. But I'm not playing this shit that America First wants. Now, that being said, I do foresee some type of either spiritual, physical, or mental war coming up in America in the next 10 years.
Yeah.
And it's you gotta be ready mentally for it, spiritually and physically. And you just gotta have the judgment to be able to determine, is this a fight worth taking? Or do I need to actually communicate and try to preach? Because God, more I listen to you in general, the more that I'm just like, man, America First drives me nuts. Just the way they go about things. It really is disheartening, and it reminds me a lot of the people they like to call out.
Yeah.
It's like, sorry for dragging that down a little bit, but
I mean, it's the same thing I've seen with Dyer all along. It's the same thing I've seen him try to do and mislead. I mean, he has led many people to the faith. He's just very much a bad actor.
yeah.
And
Now
that's just
God
it.
does say,
Oh,
go ahead.
you go.
No, I was just going to say, God does say that He will use those bad faith actors to bring more to Him. Now, that being said, we should do all that we can to teach, correct, rebuke what He's saying so that people understand. Yes, He's saying certain things that are absolutely valid and right, and that's why you're here. However, you need to be exposed to more of the Bible and less of His manipulation.
Yeah, manipulation's pretty dangerous. And that's what I feel like a lot of those political factions, like America First. That was a crack.
That's a good one. No,
That was a good one.
they have a lot of valid points. Like I've got a buddy that's hardcore Catholic, and he doesn't even like America First. But
Yeah.
occasionally, I'll see him posting some of the stuff, and like he posted something from Beardson. And I was like, dude, fuck Beardson. I absolutely despise that man. At any time he opens his mouth, whether or not it's a broken clock being right twice a day, I do not like listening to him. He goes, I know. I don't like him either. However, there are certain things that they say at face value that are 100% accurate. And it's kind of like Dyer, where he leads a bunch of people to the faith. Well, they're getting a bunch of people in America First by using the same tactic
Mm-hmm.
of that. At face value, you're 100% correct. Now, the way you want to go about it and the details that you use, not so much.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very much so a sleight of hand phenomenon there. Or the velvet glove and the gauntlet. Either way, take your cliche for that one, I guess.
Yep. Pick
It's
and
the cliche
choose.
buffet. Yeah. Yeah. I mean it's frustrating. But I mean, see the thing is that like at the end of the day, I'm not, I don't lose sleep over it. Um but it's very much so encouraging to know that false actors you know, do this. Like, I mean, let's just look at political campaigns, like that case in point right there. Like, it's obvious that that is the way it is.
Yeah.
But to me, the weird part is that it's like they get so hopped up on, well, I mean, to call their enemies out, yet to track track down and be so hyper focused on one political leader, funny mustache man, to get to the point to where he is literally like the other part is that I mean there's a lot to it that obviously he completely politically intriguing. But the weird part is outside of him being a genocidal and homicidal maniac and a complete drug addict, um, there was a lot of nobility to his life that led him up to that point. the problem is that the political back and forth, the debate that's there, the debate that's either controlled or not controlled, a lot of that reverberates to me the very times that we're living in. I mean, the very thing that is that person on TV that is playing a politician right now. Are they telling the truth, or are they just acting like that's going to serve their own narcissistic campaign, right? So to me, it's like, yeah, I mean, they could talk about the Jews all they want, but yet, like, if you don't see like your own narcissism in the way and your own spiritually sick, you know, problems, well, it's hard. It's easy for somebody who is healthy to see that, but it's harder for somebody who is going to be more of a follower rather than a leader to see that. And that's, to me, like, there's a lot of that too. And I mean, you could talk about the left and right paradigm and how that is inverted or correctly overted, with the way it goes, but doesn't really matter. Like, it, I don't know. I don't I don't think by that point, if you're so hopped up in that and caught up in that, the last thing you need to worry about is a certain group of people controlling the world. Like, that's the last thing you need to worry about.
Yep.
So, to me, obviously, I kind of saw the writing on the wall with America First. They're very disingenuous when it came to all that. And I knew, I was like, well, he's the most canceled man in America. And, like, he's so, he's so tradcath. And I was like, this guy reminds me of like a dork I could like beat up in high school. I'm like, I'm not, nah, I'm
Yeah,
good.
he drives me nuts because basically everything landed in his lap in one degree or another, and he acts like he could run the country, and it's like, you can't, dude. You have, sure, you put other people in power in your charity organization, and you have people that bring money in, and you have rallies and support, but it's most of the people that actually live in the real world that do all this for him.
Yeah.
All he does is like, well, I want to do this, and someone does it for him just because he speaks well. And it's like, you don't have the ability to go out and do anything on your own. You bring nothing to the society other than a slight bit of cohesion for your specific group, but you can't actually do anything. You have no experience. You have no real world ability to do anything. As far as I'm aware, and I could be wrong, I could be speaking out of turn, but I am almost positive he has never held any form of job.
Mm.
Still lives in his parents' basement, which I'm not going to brag on to the degree of it's financially smart to live with your parents if you're single. It completely is financially smart. But outside of that, it's I don't know. I get this feeling like his parents still take care of most of his stuff. He just makes a bunch of money from, well, his biggest donation is some dude that donated him a couple $100,000 and then blew his brains out all over the wall.
Oh, man.
Like, it was to the point the FBI investigated him and was like, it's a little weird. This dude gave you over $500K and now his brain is all over the wall.
Suspicious, yeah.
To be fair, I don't think Nick had anything to do with it. I really do believe that the dude was mentally unstable and wanted a better society, so he donated all his money to Nick and then scatterbrained himself. But like, that's where he got his biggest donation from.
Wow.
Which he had other people invest for him to make money. And by other people, there's kind of a joke in that one.
Oh.
I'm not saying they did it per se for him, but the fact that he used someone else that was financially literate to make him money. It's like,
Oh, I see
you
what you did there.
stop pointing fingers when you yourself can't do it and you still rely on others to make you financially independent.
Mm.
Get out, get some real world experience, live on your own, understand the struggles that Americans go through. Not some fucking fantasy that you can hyper focus on because you don't have any responsibilities in the real world. Uh-oh. James, you get disconnected? Well, audience, give me a moment. Since I believe the stream's still going, I'm going to message him and see what's going on. Yep, I would say he went out. Well, we've got that. So, if that's the case, I don't really think I have the ability to stop this from going live. So I'll kind of hang out for the next 20 minutes. I don't have anything else necessarily to talk about because I was going to go back and forth with James all night. So in the meantime, I think I'm going to see if I can pull up a some form of quick devotional or something, see what we can go over for the last 15-20 minutes. Okay, he just messaged me back. He lost power. So, well, that's... Yeah, he's going to make it a 2-part series, I guess. I'm going to inform him that we're still live. And I will only be doing this devotional as long as James is okay with it. And goodness, I really need to fix this lighting because I look like a ghost. All right, so he's fine with this. So the devotional I'm going to be going over is this is Paul's letters from jail. In a culture that prizes independence, submission is not a popular idea. Many modern readers bristle with when they come to Ephesians 5:22, where Paul says wives should submit to their husbands. However, the command to submit is not just for wives. In this section of the letter, the apostle speaks of the submission as a universal obligation and as an expression of reverence for Christ. These guidelines are something referred to as the Hostafel, a German word that means household order. The command of verse 21 serves as heading for this section of the letter, which runs through Ephesians 6:9. Here, Paul describes the roles of wives, husbands, children, fathers, enslaved people, and masters. Paul's goal was to help his readers live Christianly within a societal structure in his day. Looks like John Scott points out that Paul's directives assume the dignity of womanhood, childrenhood, servanthood, and equality before God of all human beings. The apostle describes differences in the roles of husbands and wives, using children and the church as a pattern. The guiding principle is the rule of love. He commands the husbands to love their wives just as Christ loves the church and gave himself up for her. Verse 25. Wives, in turn, respond to this love with voluntary submission. In this proper context, the call for the wives to submit to their husbands is everything. It is not demeaning. Husbands are to act as servants to their wives in the same way that Jesus served the church. Rather than ascribing a difference in status between husband and wives, Paul emphasizes mutuality. Both are dependent upon each other. Each serves the other. Husband and wife are equal in the eye of Christ. Jesus said, "The student is not above the teacher, nor a servant above his master." If he was not ashamed to take the role of the servant, he should not be reluctant to submit to another in love. So, that is way off topic for tonight. However, it is still important to remember that we are to submit to Christ, we are to love him, and we are to love each other. We are to find a better way to create a homogeneous society of Christianity. So, for a quick prayer, Lord, I do thank you for giving me the opportunity to meet James and to be able to join his podcast and come out and speak about you and for you in a way that presents and represents you in a proper manner. I pray that you can keep a watch over everyone and keep everyone safe, and hopefully everyone will be led to you quickly. I pray that you will continuously bless James and I to be able to do these podcasts and to further your mission and to reach more people. And I pray that you keep James safe tonight with the storm he's got going on that managed to knock out his power. And in your son's holy name, amen. Everyone, have yourself a good night. I'm not sure if the stream's going to shut off, but when my camera goes off, I will be done for the night, and I don't think James will be back. Have a good night, and go in the name of Jesus.